This video is sponsored by Squarespace. I am a huge fan of retro LEGO themes. The aesthetics, the history, everything about this stuff is just extremely fascinating to me. But unfortunately, actually buying any of these LEGO sets in 2023 is just way out of my price range. So this being a channel where I build and paint plastic models for fun and profit, I decided that if I can't afford to buy my own classic LEGO sets, why not build my own out of miniatures and model kits that I already have. Starting this week with the crew of one of the most iconic LEGO themes of the 90s, Ice Planet 2002. In my search for the perfect base models for LEGO space figures, I considered a lot of options, but I ended up going with these. The generic Space Guy kits from Stargrave that Osprey Publishing sent me a few years ago when the game first came out. When I first got these kits, I thought they were pretty unremarkable, but much like a lot of actual LEGO sets, you really need to break these kits open and build a few to really appreciate the genius of their design. Yes, these kits are generic, but that's kind of the point. They aren't really designed to help you build any specific characters, but instead allow you to build the widest possible variety of your own space guys to make your own unique stories and adventures. Each sprue contains 5 torsos with legs attached, about 15 sets of arms, and like 20 different head sculpts. And these kits are all fully modular and interchangeable with each other, as well as all the fantasy kits this company makes for their fantasy game, Frostgrave. In my opinion, these kits are really the miniature world's alternative to the LEGO minifigure, and I highly recommend them. So how did I use these kits to build the Ice Planet crew? I started out by doing a lot of experimenting, assembling figures that look like they might be from the LEGO Classic Space universe, and then considering what bits I could add to make them look even more Ice Planet 2002. One of the most iconic things about LEGO Space Guys is their little backpacks. And because the Stargrave kits don't come with backpacks that look like this, I thought I would make some of my very own. Taking a look through my existing collection of plastic bits, there was one part that stood out that I both had a lot of and that I thought would work really well for this task. And that is all the extra Necron guns you get with the 40k 9th edition starter set. Sure, they may look like Necron guns, but if you clip off some of the excess and turn them sideways, they look exactly like the power packs or jet packs or whatever those things are that a lot of LEGO Space Guys have, only with a little bit of extra texture and detail, which is exactly the sort of thing I want for this build. After this, I think the second most iconic thing about Ice Planet are the neon orange elements, and specifically that these guys use neon orange chainsaws to cut through ice and snow. I had some leftover chainswords from some Space Marines lying around, so I just glued those on and called it a day. It's too bad I didn't have a lot of these, as I would love to give everyone their own neon orange chainsaw, but I just did my best and gave 2 of the figures chainsaws. Let me know down in the comments if you know a better source of a lot of chainsaws, as I'm going to need a lot more of these in the future. Next up is the iconic Ice Planet visor. These guys already have a visor, although it doesn't look very Ice Planet to me. So to start, let's try and add an antenna onto the existing visor. And while we could just use some wire for this, instead I'm going to recommend we use this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website and hosting platform that I've been using for over a decade now for all of my website needs. You just pick a template that looks good to you, add in any modular elements you might like, and then rearrange things however you want, using their fantastic drag and drop interface. No fancy coding or technical knowledge required. I've been using my current Squarespace website for over a year now to host all of my hobby projects, reference documents, and online store. So if you need a website, why not check out squarespace.com today for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/DanaHowl for 10% off your very first purchase of a website or domain. For real though, we're not using Squarespace to build antennas for the visors, but we will use the next best thing, Necron Arms. So with a little bit of carving away at the Necron arm, it gives us this perfect little stalk with a ball on top of it, which is exactly what the Ice Planet antennae looks like. I tried to mimic the actual visor on a few of these models by carving away at another element from the Necron guns, but in the end, I ended up mostly leaving the visors the way they were from the standard kits, and just hoping that the paint scheme would sell the look. The next bit of customization I thought was necessary was gluing some tubing onto the suits. I used guitar wire for this and super glued it onto the models, trying to roughly mimic the size and placement of the tubing on the minifigures. After this, the main thing I thought was missing was some of the fur trim on the suits, as well as just adding a ton more bits to everything. For the fur, I sculpted it on myself using green stuff, and as I was doing this, I also continued adding extra techie looking bits to the models as I went. With the models complete, it's time for painting. I kept the paint scheme for these very simple, as I'm hoping to do a lot more Ice Planet builds in the future, and I want to have a quick and easy paint scheme that's ready to use on any vehicle, ship, or Ice Planet base that I might want to eventually build for this crew. So of course, for painting, slap chop is the way to go for these, and here's the method that I used. For the underpainting, we're going to prime everything in black, overspray with a blue contrast midtone, and then a final spray from above with white primer. If you don't have an airbrush, I have a video that I've linked down in the description that goes through a variety of underpainting methods, all of which would work great here and none of which require an airbrush. With the underpainting complete, I like to give the entire model as well as the base a single thick coat of Pile or Glacier. Ever since I did my review of the Contrast 2.0 range, I've been looking for a good application for this amazing color, and I think I found it here. But watch out, this stuff is easy to knock over while you're filming, so be careful about that. For the next step, I painted what little exposed skin exists on these figures in a variety of contrast colors, and then went straight to the fun part and used Magma Drawth Flame to paint any parts of the models I wanted to be fluorescent orange. After this, I worked slowly from dark to light, applying all of the blue and black tones to the figure. Obviously, these figures are not a one-to-one representation of the LEGO minifigures, so a lot of improvisation was necessary, but by starting out with the lightest colors and moving slowly towards the darker ones, I was able to easily correct any mistakes as I went. If you're curious, the order that I applied these colors was, first I applied Frostheart, which is a mid to light blue, then I applied Talassar blue, which is more of a classic Ice Planet blue, then I applied a 50-50 mix of Talassar blue and Black Legion for anything I wanted to look black but still have some highlights, and finally I used some pure Black Legion for any places on the model that I wanted to be really black or any panel lining that I wanted to do. With all the colors in place, I went back in with some So Flat titanium white to add some highlights, using a wider brush to dry brush this color onto the fur and onto the base, and a more regular brush to apply more direct highlights onto the rest of the figure. I mostly focused here on highlighting the white areas on the model, but I also gave some white highlights to any of the other parts of the figure that I thought would be shiny and reflect light, such as the visor and other fluorescent orange elements. I also used this white to edge highlight a few of the blue parts on the model that looked made of metal or space plastic. After this, I added a coat of Iyanden yellow to all of the orange parts to create the feeling that the orange parts are giving off a little bit of orange light. And I also used some Viejo metal color to add just a little bit of silver metallic trim to some select parts of each model, to match the feel of the metallics on the original figure's printing details. I then cleaned up any other remaining details on the models, rimmed the bases in black, and that's pretty much it. Ice Planet crew complete. I also did apply some snow effects to the bases on the figures, but rather than repeat myself on how I like to do that, I'm just going to recommend you go and watch my recent video on my Star Wars Legion Hoth army, where I go into more extreme detail on the way I like to do snow effects, as I used exactly the same technique here that I used on that army. Thank you so much for watching this video. This was a little bit of a passion project for me, so I would really appreciate it if you left some comments down in the description to let me know what you thought of it and if you'd like to see me do more LEGO miniature builds like this. Personally, I'm hoping to build some of the smaller Ice Planet vehicles next and work my way up to the larger sets. But as always, I'd love to hear your feedback and what you would like to see next down in the comments. Thank you as always to all of our lovely patrons for supporting the channel, and I will see you in the next video.